In the summer of 1972, John Wayne faced a Western like no other. The Cowboys didn't follow the Duke's rules, it killed him on screen, terrified child actors with real stampedes, and turned one villain into a figure hated for decades. This wasn't Hollywood magic. It was snowstorms, river crossings, horses out of control, and a man confronting mortality while teaching boys to survive a brutal world. Behind the dust and danger, a director made Wayne cry, rewrite his legacy, and redefine heroes forever. Saddle up. Here are 20 weird facts about the Cowboys that you didn't know. For decades, John Wayne's characters had been untouchable icons. He could be wounded, bruised, and beaten down, yet he always walked away. That mythology, the indestructible cowboy, the unwavering hero, defined the Duke and shaped the Western genre. But the Cowboys dared to shatter that rule. Director Mark Rydell handed Wayne a script in which his character, Will Anderson, gets shot in the back and dies in front of a group of terrified boys. No heroic last stand, no triumphant finale, just sudden, brutal death. Wayne's reaction was immediate and visceral. He threw the script across the room. I don't die in movies. Find another ending, he said. Yet Rydell refused to compromise. He explained that the story only worked if the stakes were real. If the boys had to finish the drive themselves, their growth, their fear, and their courage would matter. After days of internal struggle, Wayne reluctantly agreed, but with one condition: his death had to matter. It couldn't be forgotten, it had to break something in the audience. That choice rewrote the rules of heroism on screen. For the first time, audiences saw survival as uncertain, and victory as costly. Wayne's death gave the film emotional weight, forcing viewers to confront the fragility of life, the responsibility of leadership, and the harsh truths of growing up. In that single decision, the Western became more human, raw, and unforgettable. Warner Brothers wanted someone seasoned in Westerns, a director who knew how to handle cattle drives, shootouts, and the iconic vistas audiences expected. Mark Rydell was none of those things. A filmmaker with a background in intimate dramas, Rydell had crafted stories about human vulnerability, personal struggle, and characters pushed to their emotional limits, not high-stakes gunfights. But John Wayne saw something different. He recognized that the story of the Cowboys wasn't just about chasing outlaws or wrangling cattle, it was about boys forced to grow up before their time and a man confronting his mortality. Wayne lobbied the studio, insisting they hire Rydell, confident that his approach would bring emotional authenticity. Once on set, Rydell didn't pretend to know every Western trick. He asked questions, listened to wranglers, and carefully studied Monument Valley's sweeping landscapes. He immersed himself in the world he didn't know, learning fast while prioritizing the human story. Long, grueling days of shooting weren't just about spectacle, they were about revealing the truth in his characters' faces, the exhaustion in their bodies, the raw emotion of fear, grief, and courage. With Wayne's support, Rydell turned inexperience into a strength, creating a Western that didn't just look epic, but felt intimately real. The film's heart came not from stunt sequences or scenic beauty alone, but from the honesty he coaxed from every actor, young and old. Under the relentless sun and dust of the frontier. For the Cowboys, authenticity was paramount. Director Mark Rydell insisted that the boys who drove the herd be real cowhands, not polished child actors, aged between 11 and 15. This meant that most of the young cast had never acted before, and a few had never even stepped onto a film set. The casting process spanned ranches, rodeos, and small towns across the Southwest, seeking kids who could ride, rope, and endure life on the trail. Once filming began, the challenges were immense. Long days in the saddle, early mornings, scorching heat, sudden dust storms, and freezing blizzards tested the limits of even the toughest children. Saddle sores, sprained wrists, broken fingers, and bruises became routine. John Wayne's presence elevated the entire group. The Duke wasn't just a figure of authority, he was a role model, embodying courage, discipline, and resilience. If Wayne didn't complain, neither did the boys. Every look, every movement on screen carries that truth. Their authenticity didn't just tell the story, it made audiences feel the grit, danger, and weight of a real cattle drive, turning the film into something far beyond a conventional Western. Bruce Dern's portrayal of Long Hair, the cowardly villain who shoots John Wayne, became one of the most infamous aspects of the Cowboys. From the moment news broke that Dern's character would kill the Duke, reactions were intense. Viewers blurred the line between fiction and reality, bombarding Dern with hate mail, angry letters, and even threats. People insisted they would never watch another Bruce Dern film. Others were more extreme. Despite the backlash, Dern embraced the role fully. He didn't soften long hair for audiences, he made him slimy, smug, and utterly irredeemable. The character's villainy was designed to provoke visceral reactions, and it worked. When the final shootout came, Longhair's defeat was engineered to be humiliating. The boys, inexperienced yet desperate, used every advantage, shadows, ambushes, and clever tactics, to triumph. Dern later admitted he loved the scene because it made his character's downfall memorable and satisfying. Audiences didn't just witness a villain being defeated, they felt the tension, the fear, and the reckoning. For years afterward, people would approach Dern in public, recounting their outrage over Longhair's betrayal of the iconic Duke. In a sense, the hate confirmed his success. He had not merely acted, he had made the role unforgettable, terrifying in its realism, and cemented a villain that Western fans would remember for decades. His performance ensured that the Cowboys would be talked about far beyond its release. The Cowboys wasn't filmed on studio sets or with small herds, it was a full-scale, living cattle drive. Over 1,200 real cows thundered across open terrain, from rocky trails to river crossings, each animal unpredictable and untamed. Director Mark Rydell demanded authenticity, insisting that the chaos, noise, and danger be captured in its rawest form. The young actors, many barely teens, were thrust into perilous conditions. Horses spooked. Cattle scattered, and more than once a child was nearly trampled. During the notorious blizzard scene, temperatures plummeted below freezing. Snow fell in thick, wet layers, and the boys were soaked, shivering, and exhausted. Some feared they wouldn't survive the ordeal. But Rydell kept the cameras rolling, determined to film true reactions, genuine fear, and the grueling struggle that mirrored the story. Every stumble, every gasp, every desperate grip on the reins was real. Crew members dived into the fray to prevent serious injury, but nothing could fully control the unpredictability of nature and animals. That danger, that raw physicality, translates directly onto the screen. Audiences don't just watch the herd, they feel it, hear it, almost smell the dust and the snow. These scenes brought a visceral realism to the film, grounding the story in true risk and struggle, and elevating the Cowboys far above typical Western spectacle. The tension, the chaos, the courage, it was all lived, not staged. For John Wayne, The Cowboys was more than a performance, it was a chance to leave a mark on the next generation. Unlike most films, Wayne spent hours working with the boys, coaching them not only on writing and scenes but on understanding responsibility, courage, and manhood. His presence on set was magnetic, he balanced authority with empathy, instilling confidence while modeling vulnerability. The most powerful scenes often came from unscripted moments, Wayne improvising speeches, speaking from his own life, fears, and mortality. One such speech, about how it's not how you're buried but how you're remembered, was delivered from the heart, resonating far beyond the camera. These moments weren't just acting, they were Wayne's personal reflections, transmitted through the character of Will Anderson. He didn't coddle the boys but respected them, treating them as real young men facing real consequences. His guidance helped them rise to challenges they had never imagined, whether riding through raging rivers, blizzards, or dangerous terrain. The combination of Wayne's toughness, his mentorship, and his ability to show genuine emotion left a lasting impression on the cast. Decades later, those actors still recount the lessons he imparted, both on screen and off. Wayne's humanity, his struggle with age and mortality, became inseparable from his performance, turning The Cowboys into one of his most emotionally resonant films. The Cowboys is remembered not only for its story but for the palpable danger captured on film. Some of the movie's most iconic sequences, the blizzard, the river crossings, the treacherous mountain trails, were shot in conditions that tested both the cast and crew to their limits. Snowstorms weren't simulated, freezing temperatures, soaking wet clothing, and icy winds created a genuine sense of peril. Horses stumbled on slick terrain, cattle scattered unpredictably, and the young actors were often clinging to reins for dear life. Director Mark Rydell thrived on capturing authentic reactions. Cameras rolled as fear, frustration, and determination played across real faces, adding layers of realism no staged set could replicate. One night shoot added an unforgettable shock, a wild mountain lion appeared, pausing the production in frozen terror. Cast and crew stayed motionless, hearts racing, until the predator retreated into darkness. Moments like these, unscripted and uncontrollable, contributed to the movie's enduring legacy, blending artistry with authentic risk. The dangers weren't just visual, they were felt, breathed, and endured, lending a tangible edge to every scene. The audience doesn't merely watch the blizzard or river, it is swept into it. It's the combination of genuine threat, human struggle, and raw courage that elevated the Cowboys beyond a typical Western, transforming ordinary sequences into legendary cinematic moments that continue to resonate decades later. John Williams' score for the Cowboys did more than accompany the action, it became an emotional backbone of the film. Unlike typical Western scores that relied on twanging guitars or dusty motifs, Williams crafted something sweeping, intimate, and deeply human. Epic orchestration collided with tender, introspective passages that mirrored the boys' coming-of-age journey, highlighting courage, fear, and vulnerability. The music punctuated danger with rising tension, underscored quiet moments of mentorship, and gave weight to John Wayne's towering yet vulnerable presence. Williams avoided clichés, instead weaving a personal narrative into each scene, allowing audiences to feel both the vastness of the frontier and the internal struggles of the young cowhands. From the pounding river crossing sequence to the quiet, reflective campfire scenes, the score amplified emotions without ever overshadowing the story. It transformed action into poetry and peril into emotional resonance. While often overlooked in discussions of great Western soundtracks, Williams' work remains one of his most underrated achievements in the genre, influencing how future films balance spectacle and emotional depth. The music and the story are inseparable, each enhancing the other, and together they create an immersive world where danger, growth, and heroism coexist. Decades later, the score continues to evoke the wildness of the frontier and the tender heart at the center of the Cowboys. The original script for the Cowboys envisioned a clean, heroic ambush. The boys would fall into position, gunfire would erupt, and victory would be swift and assured. Director Mark Rydell, however, saw a different truth in the story. On location, he improvised, ropes snapped, planks collapsed, cattle panicked, and ambush tactics became chaotic exercises in survival rather than choreographed heroics. The young actors, some inexperienced, fought through real fear, dodging cattle, tripping over uneven ground, and reacting to the unpredictability of nature. Explosions and staged falls amplified the tension, but it was the genuine vulnerability of the boys that made the scene resonate. They weren't perfect cowboys, they were desperate, clever, and learning in real time. Wayne's presence guided them, but even he was subject to the shifting dangers of the terrain and herd. The final shootout became more than a cinematic set piece, it was an emotional crucible, a test of courage and ingenuity. Audience anticipation rose not because of a flawless gunfight, but because every success felt earned, every moment of triumph tinged with risk. Cleverness, fear, and personal growth replaced polished heroics. This chaotic, scrappy climax reshaped the conventions of Western storytelling, proving that realism, danger, and human imperfection could carry as much weight and excitement as any traditional Hollywood spectacle. Decades later, The Cowboys remains a cultural touchstone, a story where heroism carries risk, survival exacts a price, and the frontier is as much about human growth as it is about action. Its impact resonates across generations, proving that Westerns can transcend spectacle to explore real-world stakes, emotional depth, and the enduring bonds between mentor and pupil.